Hello, this is Lesson 11, Business of Organized Crime, Prostitution. So what we're going to be talking about, here's your objectives for this lesson plan. Number one is describe the history of prostitution. Two is recognize Nevada's prostitution guidelines. List 6 types of prostitutes. Recognize Penal Code Section 647B. Describe what constitutes a lewd act. Identify lascivious conduct. And then number 7, describe organized crimes involvement in prostitution. 8 is recognize the Mann Act. 9, describe how an escort agency works. And 10, describe how prostitution and human trafficking are linked. So those are your objectives. Look at those in conjunction with the following PowerPoint presentation. What we have to look at when we talk about prostitution is an historical timeline, if you will. Prostitution's existence has been documented for thousands and thousands of years. It even goes back clear to Hammurabi, who was one of the first rulers that instituted a written rule of law, if you will, in Babylon. But we've got documented evidence that the Greeks, Romans, and other conquering armies either enabled or actually relied upon prostitution. There's a cliche that it's the world's oldest profession. Well, the oldest profession, quite frankly, is hunting and gathering. But it wasn't until man finally became civilized where there was an exchange of money for goods, for services, that could be bartered, and that's when sex started coming into the equation, and you started having people selling themselves in order to obtain other types of material gain, if you will. Like I said before, in the 18th century, before the Common Era, so that was, almost 3,000 years ago, you had the Code of Hammurabi, again, a Babylonian ruler who wrote the first set of codified law on some clay tablets, which for the most part is this area in through here. And in one of those sections, he mentions the inheritance rights for prostitutes and for widows. And a lot of it has to do with inheritance for widows and prostitutes, so that they can maintain a certain amount, a standard of living, and a certain amount of property. So that's what that had to do with Hammurabi. Where we really see a lot of evidence of prostitution, though, was 6th century Greece, BCE. So 600 years before modern era, you had a Greek political statesman by the name of Solon, and he establishes reforms in Athens in Greece. And what he did is he instituted the regulation of brothels that were established. And in Greece at this time, you had 3 types of prostitutes. The pornai, which is kind of an offroot if you look at it for pornography. But the pornai consisted of 2 different types of prostitutes. You had the slave prostitute, that was a person that was taken to captivity in different Greek wars. And you also had the freeborn pornai, which was a actual Greek citizen, lower social class, but nevertheless had a social class, unlike the slave pornai. They had no class whatsoever. And then you had the hectari, which were educated men and women. Now, prostitutes incorporated both, or encompassed both men and women. It wasn't strictly women. But the hectari were educated individuals. They were included in the upper class. They were entertainers, but they were highly educated, and they were looked upon with a lot of favor. Now, prostitution timeline here, you've got a link up in this area, which will, if you click on this link, will get you back to an area that I'm looking at right now. But it's a written link that gives you information on this timeline that we're talking about right now. So if you click up there, you'll go back. And I just put some images here. And like over in the left-hand corner, so we know that prostitution has existed. It existed through Hammurabi's time, Greek and Roman times. The Romans adapted most of the Greeks' form of government, so their laws were very similar. But it wasn't until about 590 A.D., and you had the newly crowned king, Visigoth king of Spain, Ricard I, and he bans prostitution as part of an effort to bring his country more in line with Christian ideology. So from the time of, for 1,000 years, prostitution obviously has existed. And now with the advent of Christian and Christian ideology taking over, we find a big influence on prostitution. So King Ricard establishes laws outlawing prostitute. So if women were found guilty of selling any type of sexual favors, they were whipped 300 times, which would probably be a death sentence, and then exiled if they survived it. So over here we have, we move up until about the 12th century. You have King Henry II of Great Britain here, or England at the time, and he, this is during the medieval period, so you've got at least 500 years between these two eras where prostitution becomes a little bit more acceptable. Religious standards have somewhat relaxed, not a lot because the Catholic Church is control, but England, and particularly with Henry, he was at odds with the Pope quite a bit. So I think it was kind of a slap in the face of Roman Catholicism and the Pope. So he tolerated prostitution. It was an accepted fact of life in major cities. It was discouraged, but nevertheless, they kind of turned a blind eye to it. So he did mandate that prostitutes must be single and ordered weekly inspections of London's famous or infamous brothels, just to ensure that other laws weren't being broken, which kind of reminds you of another synergistic crime where you've got other laws that are taking advantage of one that's being broken. And then over here you've got 14th century Italy embraces prostitution. The Great Council of Venice, Italy at the time is made up of different principalities and different kingdoms. It's not a unified country. So the Great Council of Venice, which was a very powerful nation state at the time in Italy, declared that prostitution to be absolutely indispensable to the world. And by 1358, the government-funded brothels were established in major Italian cities throughout the 14th and 15th century. So again, our values about prostitution, etc., were somewhat relaxed by this time. However, that comes to kind of a screeching halt by the end of the 1500s and going into the 1600s. You had Pope Sixtus V, and this is a classic example of prostitution's double standards. So he started, because the Catholic Church was so powerful at the time, you had the Inquisition going on, and he ended up reinstituted a heavy ban on prostitution. And the thing is, the penalties for prostitution, they ranged from maiming to execution. But the thing is, they were in place in many different European states. However, they weren't enforced that heavily. He wanted to change that. He got frustrated. So he decided a more direct approach, and he ordered that all women, and here's the double standard, women, not men, who participated in prostitution should be put to death. And there was no evidence that the order was carried out, but nevertheless it was basically an edict that he produced. But again, it affected women, not men, as usual. and created this double standard. So he only reigned for about 5 years, but he was a fairly notorious pope during this time. Now the rest of this timeline, again, I've got a series of different pictures. We know that prostitution doesn't end. By the 1800s, early 1800s here in France, just after the French Revolution, the government replaced the traditional bans on prostitution with a new Bureau of Morals. And it was established in Paris and then later throughout the country. But the agency was founded essentially to police or be responsible for monitoring houses of ill repute, basically your brothels, and make sure that they complied with the law and didn't become centers for, again, synergistic crime or crime that piggybacked on prostitution. And the agency actually operated for about 100 years before it was finally abolished. So that was back in the early 1800s and 19th century. And this picture here depicts World War II. You got a British soldier talking to a Burmese, looks like a child, but possibly a young woman. And at the beginning of 1932, when Japan invaded Manchuria, later China, and then Indochina, World War II, the Japanese would take females from conquered countries and force them into prostitution. They called them, quote unquote, comfort women. So they were there basically to service the armies. Many women were put on Navy ships to service the crew. There was a contingent of comfort women that followed troops during the invasions. And they basically had brothels constructed, which were tents in the rear of the front to service the Japanese troops. Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, Burmese, Thai, most of Southeast Asia that had been conquered by Japan during this time. Many of the women were forced into the sex trade and sex slave industry. In India, this next picture here, you have the famous or the infamous Mumbai cages in an area of Kamathurapura. It's Asia's largest red light district, and it's located in India. And India basically established what they call an Immoral Traffic Suppression Act, and it theoretically banned commercialized sex trade in 1956. So Indian anti-prostitution laws were generally enforced and have traditionally been enforced as public order statutes, but it's restricted to certain areas where it's tolerated, such as that area there. So India is home to Asia's largest red light district out of Mumbai, which is the capital. So it originated as a massive brothel for British soldiers and British citizens living in India, and then it shifted to your local clientele following Indian independence. 1971, you had the advent of, or the establishment of Nevada brothels. Here's a picture of the Bunny Ranch. It's actually the only area in the, or state in the United States that has legalized prostitution. And we'll talk about that as far as what the requirements are, but this is the Bunny Ranch, which is one of the first brothels in Nevada. Over here you've got Sweden. They have taken on a feminist approach. So they attempted new legislation in '99 classifying prostitution as a form of violence against women. But they offer general amnesty to anybody that has been arrested for it. So they look at it more of as kind of a medical issue than a criminal one. So it hasn't really, their new laws haven't decriminalized prostitution, but it's selling sex is illegal. Buying sex or pandering prostitution is also illegal. But it's still somewhat tolerated. South Africa, again, after their independence in 2007, uh, it's been a natural haven for international sex traffickers. Uh, it has a very serious domestic prostitution problem, even though it is illegal. And 25% of the prostitutes here in South Africa are children. So the government's trying to crack down as part of a human trafficking enforcement, but it's one of the worst areas for prostitution and human trafficking. So, okay, what is a prostitute? Well, in a nutshell, a prostitute performs sexual acts for money or other considerations or for material gain. That's basically what it boils down to when you look at the penal code. The argument is that it's a victimless crime, but you have to ask yourself, is it? We'll talk about this further in this presentation. But you got to remember, prostitution does have social, moral, and legal implications. So we'll revisit this victimless crime topic here in a little bit. Yeah, okay. Got another link up here for prostitution. It's I believe a YouTube video, but prostitution's legal in several countries nowadays. Holland, Germany, both have legalized prostitution. If you click on these links, it'll give you two YouTube presentations. This one is on Holland's red light district, or Amsterdam's red light district. And Germany, it gives you a link to a fairly famous street in Berlin where you have a number of street prostitutes that are standing soliciting. And here is a list out of Wikipedia that shows you worldwide the global list of countries where prostitution is legal and illegal for that matter. Now, prostitution is illegal in the United States, except for one state that does have legalized prostitution. And Nevada is the only state in the union where brothels are legal, except for Clark County, where the city of Las Vegas is in, Washoe County, which is where Reno is in, and then Douglas and Lincoln counties. And also the state capital of Carson City, which is it's independent of all the other counties. So those are the areas that do not have legalized brothels. Part of the rules and regulations with Nevada is that a city with a population of greater than 400,000, it's illegal to operate a brothel. And in counties with a population of less than 700,000, it is allowed. So any city above 400,000, it's illegal. And any population, any county with a population less than 700,000, it is allowed. It's up to the individual counties to vote on whether they want to have legalized brothels in their county. So currently, as of 2013, 19 brothels are operating out of 11 counties in Nevada. This link will take you to a YouTube video on legal brothels, I believe, in Nevada. So part of the regulation for having a legalized or regulated brothel is that it has to be registered with the state. The workers have to be tested weekly for gonorrhea and chlamydia, monthly for HIV and syphilis. Condom use is mandatory in all acts of touching. So even if the person is just making hand contact with any genitalia, a condom has to be used. And if a customer contracts STD after a worker tests positive, then the brothel owner is liable. We're going to talk about a number of different prostitutes. There's about 6 that we look at. And you have, first one is your streetwalker. They're the ones that have been termed as professionals, even though all of these women or men that are engaged in this type of prostitution are professional if they do it for any length of time. But the most basic one is a streetwalker. Then you have bar girls, or what you call B girls, or B guys, I guess. They're the ones that work lounges, cocktail areas, strip clubs, bars, that type of thing, where they can operate out of the establishment. You have your massage parlors. You have the internet, where you have escorts in out-call services, in-call, and then massage services. So these are all escort services. You can also look up in the phone directory, Yellow Pages, or what have you. Look under escort and massage services, and it'll just give you a huge listing of different agencies that provide out-call services. Now you look at the California Penal Code, and the enforcement section for prostitution comes under PC 647 subsection B. It is a misdemeanor for a violation, and it's fairly ambiguous. I mean, there's a lot of lawyerese talk, but what it comes down to is specific intent. And again, engaging in an act of prostitution if there's the exchange of money or material gain or any type of consideration. So both people do not have to agree to it, so to be guilty of it. So in this line here, if a solicitation was made by one person, the second person declined, that first person is still liable for solicitation. So you don't have to have the completed act of intercourse or sexual contact to be guilty of solicitation or actual prostitution. So part of the law includes lewd and lascivious or unlawful acts. So again, there's a number of different open, ambiguous terms, if you will, that come into play with this penal code section. Now, lewd act is part and parcel of prostitution, so it's conduct that involves touching another's genitals, buttocks, or female breasts with the intent to arouse himself sexually or to annoy a victim. So that's a lewd act. That usually takes place with prostitution, where you're touching certain body parts to arouse yourself. So that takes that element into context here as far as the law reads. Lascivious conduct is a reference to the conduct which includes people living together who are not known to be married, but basically entertainment. Here's the key word, entertainment, which aims at arousing the libido or sexual sensation. So again, solicitation or some type of overt action, solicitation or overt action dealing with prostitution or exposure of the genitalia, indecent exposure, that all are elements that build into the claim of prostitution. The thing is, if you look at it, critics are, they look at it, they complain about the way the law is read. It's narrow in scope, but the thing is, it involves four social concerns: money or material gain, promiscuity, and relationship to a sexual partner, and subtlety, meaning it isn't that pronounced that there is a certain amount of concealment that is engaged in this type of activity. When we talk about prostitution and organized crime role, it depends on the type of activity, the location of the activity, but historically, organized crime has been related to prostitution. It's been active in the trade. Political machines have used it with an attempt to buy votes or to extort political people. You had Lucky Luciano from our major mafia families in New York. He tried to take over and consolidate or centralize New York's prostitution. That's the thing that got him arrested and jailed for over 10 years, was on a prostitution charge. Nowadays, in more contemporary times, you have Asian organized crime groups and outlaw motorcycle gangs are some of the larger contributors to prostitution through money laundering with your massage parlors, bars, strip clubs, that type of thing that tolerate and advocate prostitution out of those establishments. Same thing with the Mexican drug cartel. They control a lot of the prostitution in cities within Mexico, as well as strip clubs are owned by cartel members that tolerate and condone prostitution out of them. Street gangs. Now here's kind of a classic thing right here. If you click on this link, what do street gangs have to do with running prostitutes? Well, just recently, last year as a matter of fact, you had a number of street gangs down in San Diego and even actually up here in Oceanside, but it was a nationwide ring that spanned 46 cities, 23 states, where they were engaged in sex trafficking of minors, runaways that they would befriend, get them addicted to drugs, and then they started advertising the girls and the women on both Craigslist and Backpage for prostitution. There was a huge ring broken up in Oceanside, and it went clear down to San Diego. So read this article here. It's pretty interesting. It's a Channel 8 news article, but it gives you a little insight into even just how involved street gangs can be controlled. Crips gangs, Bloods, they were the primary ones that were dealing in it. And then, of course, lastly, you have pimps and drug dealers that go hand in hand with running prostitutes. Many prostitutes are what we call independent, but those that aren't, like I say, some of the runaways or girls that get hooked on drugs, hook up with their drug dealers who then start pimping them out. So you got to remember, a pimp is kind of the father figure for these gals, but at the same time, it's a very violent and abusive relationship. The girls don't keep any of their money. It goes to the pimp. The pimp is strictly used as an enforcer to maintain her territory, to bail her out if she gets arrested, and to supply her with drugs. Back in the early 1900s, there was such a problem with human trafficking. They called it white slavery at the time, mainly because of the huge influx of European immigrants that we had coming over to this country during this period, as you will remember. In order to make ends meet, a lot of these women were forced into prostitution in order to, help pay for the family expenses, and also to, raise children or what have you. So you had what you call the Mann Act in 1910. And this was a state senator or a congressman, I'm sorry, James Robert Mann. And it had to do with white slavery, and it prohibited white slavery from the transporting these individuals across state lines for quote-unquote immoral purposes, which in this case is what we're talking about as prostitution. So it's basically talking about, getting someone in, let's say here in California, and driving them over to Nevada in order to conduct prostitution activity. This is one of the things that, and even today, this act is one of the primary enforcement tools used by the feds, and that's what they busted a lot of those street gangs on the trafficking and prostitution charges that we just talked about. But this act addresses prostitution, human trafficking. So the United States still uses this to prosecute human traffickers and those involved in interstate prostitution. Now, in a nutshell, the Mann Act basically forbids the transportation of women across state lines for immoral purposes. Now, that's kind of, again, an ambiguous term, but we're talking basically for illegal sex. It's used for enforcement in illegal alien smuggling activity, because a lot of them are forced into prostitution, and for human trafficking. So there's about 3 areas here that the Mann Act comes to play for federal prosecution. Here we have a number of different web links. You have prostitution and human trafficking here, which is a YouTube video. And going back, this talks about prostitution as not being a victimless crime. This is a good link here to look at when we start talking about is prostitution victimless, like we did in one of those earlier slides. It also is part and parcel to your assignment for your essay. You need to look at this and pay attention to what this individual is talking about. TED Talks, they don't last more than about 15 to 17 minutes, so it's not going to kill you. But listen to this lecture. And then we've got a link here, Sex Slaves and Human Trafficking. And again, this is another YouTube video. It's 3 minutes. And it just gives you a link to some pictures and some general information. And then down here, you got 21st Century Sex Slaves. It was part of a documentary.
Got a lot of slavery going on.
Actually, this is a full video, and this is about a guy that's run around in Thailand, particularly Bangkok, that's chasing. It's an area that's kind of an epicenter for human trafficking, and particularly some of these girls working out of Thailand. A lot of Uzbekistani, which is Uzbekistan women, are transported over here to work. It's not just Thai women. It's a number of different nationalities that come to work here. I saw it quite a bit in Dubai and the Emirates. There's a large contingent of women from Uzbekistan and Russia that are working as prostitutes in those countries. And then finally, you've got child sex trafficking in the United States. And this is another, video. They're both.
Selena's mom is certain that if she comes home again.
But this is called Selling the Girl Next Door. And this is actually girls that are here in the United States, not some other country or a third world country that is experiencing this problem. We are too, and particularly with the amount of runaways, so on and so forth, that are subject to be forced into prostitution. So these are 3 videos that you need to look at, and this link here. So this is a pretty important area that will give you a good understanding and foundation for your essay. This link here is the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. It's a link. It's a written link. And it gives you a number of different resources, if you will, if you come over here as far as human sex trafficking, human trafficking, and it gives you a wide list of things that you can read. They're short, similar to what this is here, but it'll give you a fairly good foundation for resources to look at. This is just kind of an overview, but this is an actual center that's, or a contact hotline to help eradicate human trafficking. Currently, there's about over 500,000 prostitutes working in the U.S. That's an estimate that might be about 1912 or 2012 where that estimate came in. But we know it comes in a variety of formats and venues, like we mentioned before. You have streets, bars, massage parlors, your brothels, hotels, your internet contacts, also even domestic help. People come from other countries that are believe they're under the pretense they're getting hired as a maid or domestic help at a house, and it ends up they're forced into prostitution. So domestic help is a big thing, but that sometimes can lead to prostitution. But these are normally the areas that you're going to find prostitutes working out of. Now, the most basic one, like we said, is a streetwalker. And if you go up here and you click on this link, it'll take you to YouTube. It's a couple minutes. Now, the thing is with this video, if you're offended by foul language, don't click on it. It's a hip-hop, kind of a underground hip-hop song. It features kind of African-American women working the streets of LA, and you got a couple guys rapping talking about prostitutes and so on and so forth. But it's fairly offensive. I mean, they use some fairly graphic language, so you don't need to click on it if it does offend you. But the most basic type of prostitute is a streetwalker. You know, they operate informally as to what our organized crime standards are. I mean, it's at the lowest rung of the scale. It's not like massage parlors or some other establishment that women work out of, or some of your escort agencies. They work within criminal street influences. A lot of times they'll have a pimp. They're also, the pimps are drug dealers. Both women and the people they associate with are involved in petty or even serious crimes like violent crime, robbery, assault. So it's a pretty rugged, it's a pretty dangerous position to be a streetwalker. It's not nice. It's not beautiful. It's a very brutal and abusive work to be engaged in. So a streetwalker is your most basic type of prostitute. She'll usually have a relationship with a pimp. Could be a lover, could be even a spouse, but it's very coercive, the relationship is. There's physical control by the pimp onto the prostitute through intimidation, drug dependency. The prostitute is always the breadwinner in these cases, so she has to hand over all her earnings. If not, she's going to be severely disciplined. But like I said earlier, the pimp supplies physical security, protection of territory, bailout money. He's also the money manager. He's a transporter. He'll take her if she's involved in alcohol, or take her to her territory by driving her, and he puts her up in a residence. So he supplies the money end, the basic monetary needs, the food, you name it. However, she isn't getting any money out of the tricks that she's turning. And the bottom line here, it's usually a violent and abusive relationship. On a little bit more upscale thing is your massage parlor. And this will give you a link. This link here links you to what they call Naughty Reviews, and that's another news group that's out there that rates different massage parlors. Now what you have to do is join this news group, pay some money. But if you clicked on any one of these different spas, acupressure, these health places, suntanning places, not all suntan, but most of it has to do with acupressure and other types of Asian spas. It'll give you a review of the performance of the masseuse. So that's a link there, but usually you have to pay money really to get in and read the reviews. Those types of establishments are known to be money laundering outlets for Asian organized crime and your outlaw motorcycle groups. They're very visible. Like I said before, they usually come under your acupressure massage parlor, your holistic health office, massage and sauna, or like a day spa, and then your tanning salon. So these are usually a front operated by Asian organized crime and outlaw motorcycle gangs. Your bars and strip clubs. This link will take you to, okay, there's a content warning on it, but this talks about a new wave of underground strip clubs that are operating out of New York right now, and they're a combination of a bar and a strip club. But they basically, what they are is a front for prostitution activity. So even if you get a legitimate bar or strip club, you know, the dancers will perform lap dances or couch dances, if you will, table dances for additional money after they do their performance on stage. A lot of times you're taken into a separate room where you pay $20 for 5 minutes or whatever time it is, and that's where the women will, they'll stay clothed or technically by law they have to stay clothed, but they can have bodily contact. They'll rub. It's kind of a suggestive dance. But usually what happens is you establish a relationship with one of the dancers, and at that point in time, I think if you're trusted enough, you can start negotiating for different sex acts, which could take place somewhere in another area of the bar or strip club, or you could work out of a hotel that's adjacent or some other area that's nearby that is also part of this group. So you've got these prostitutes that work bars and solicit the clientele. They can work in concert with the owner or the management, so everybody gets a part of the money that's exchanged in this. If she's working a bar, she could be working with the owner, where if you go in, you buy her a drink. Her drink is it's going to cost you, 5-6 times the amount of what it would cost you. So her drinks are sold at very inflated prices, and a lot of times they don't even contain alcohol in them. And then at that point, again, if you can negotiate for her services, it could be in a nearby hotel or motel where the manager is also involved in the activity. You have hotel and convention prostitutes, and they can work in concert with management for the hotels or whoever holding the convention. The managers could tolerate the action, or they'll charge a finder fee, whether the person working it as a prostitute can or will have to pay a certain percentage to work it. They intermingle at the different trade shows with the business people. They'll work the bars, the lounges, or the clubs that are associated with the resort or the hotel. With the internet, it's really changed the face of and complexion of prostitution. I mean, in some of your larger urban areas, you're going to get a lot of streetwalkers, but in some of your smaller communities where prostitution is still pretty prevalent, the internet or phone directory is usually the source in order to find a prostitute. You've got a number of different websites and news groups out there, but under this link here, internet or phone directories, it's a news link, and 3 minutes, and it's basically about a prostitution ring operating out of Oklahoma City. So it's not just here or in your large city, it's in smaller places across the United States. And then here with the internet, with escorts, you've got another YouTube video on how the internet interfaces with prostitution. You also have massage services, phone directories, escort, dating, massage. These are out call. You can have in call. It covers everything. Here, I've showed you this slide here today, but this is the way Backpage is broken down. It's a legitimate classified ad site found on the internet. But over here, when you start looking at dating with women for men, men for women, so on and so forth, this could be prostitution related. But there are some legitimate people that are on it that are looking for legitimate relationships. But down here, under this term adults, you've got escorts, body rubs, strippers, strip clubs, dominants and fetishes, transvestites, male escorts, and then adult jobs. So these are mostly illegal. For your escort, like I've explained earlier, you would click on that link, and there's another slide behind it. You'd read the ad, click on it, contact her, and then negotiate a price. They hide behind the disclaimer that their money being exchanged is strictly for time. But nevertheless, it's not. There's probably additional fees, so on and so forth. This is kind of massage here. Now, there's a lot different. You look down here, there's services under massage, but these are mostly legal. So these are true, certified massage therapists that are advertising, their service. So this is mostly legal. Some of this stuff up here will filter down here, but for the most part, this is legal. This, for the most part, is prostitution related. Now, if you clicked on one of those links, body rubs, massage, escort, you will get the individual advertisements for the women involved. And these are basically sales pitches to entice you to. You click on that, it'll take you actually to their site, and it'll be more specific as to what they're offering. These are advertisements that the girls will or guys will advertise in, cost about $15 a month. These are long-term ads where they'll run for a week up to a month, and they'll pay obviously more money in order to get this long-term ad. When you clicked on that other link, say under escorts, this is a screen you get. This is the link section. Now you can even get into more specific geographic locations within the county. So either you could have the entire county just under the escort section, or just go for the city, east, north, or south part of the county. So your resources are the internet for in-call and out-call. Prostitutes can advertise on these sites. You've got sites like Backpage, Eros, City Vibe, The Exotic Review, SCAP, and the phone book, the Yellow Pages. These are all network links to advertise for prostitution. Now, your out-call services, usually you start talking about high-end. Now, this isn't strictly, Backpage. This, and they can advertise on Backpage, but their services are much more than the average. On Backpage, you're going to pay anywhere between $60, $70 up to $300 is about the usual. Anything over $300, you start getting into higher class. Now, you start going to cities like New York, Chicago, LA. Some of these escorts will charge up to $1,000 an hour. I mean, it's ridiculous how much money they charge, but nevertheless, they're getting it. So, but it's the highest level of prostitution in this type of trade. Just with escort services, organized crime's active. Like we said before, you've got Asian organized crime, outlaw motorcycle gangs. They're involved in escort services. But at the same time, it could be legitimate. There's been a number of women that have run these organizations. But to have an escort service, you need a financial backer to get the phone banks going, have a staff, have security, have drivers, have a business manager. You're usually going to have an attorney on retainer. So, but this is a pretty sophisticated operation. And prostitutes, they're normally more attractive, they're better educated, but they're also more expensive. If they do work for an escort agency, they'll take anywhere between 30 to 60% of what the fee is up front to have the prostitute come out to you. So she's not getting all that money. And what happens is you pay the money up front, and then if there's going to be any type of sexual activity, you pay the money on top of that. So she works for tips. And part of the sex act is working for the tips, and that's the money that she'll keep. So you could pay, say, $100 for an appearance fee, and then after that, depending on what your sexual proclivity is, you can pay another $300 more on top of that $400 to get what you really want. So the escort agencies, they do have set rules and regulations for the prostitutes. They may have a male driver that acts as security. They'll have to call in when they get there. They call at a certain point to make sure that their safety hasn't been compromised, and also to call the driver to pick them up. So there's a number of rules and regulations that do go along with these escort agencies. In order to operate effectively, though, there usually has to be some type of bribery with local law enforcement. But the problem is law enforcement's so overburdened. The system succeeds just because of that. There just aren't enough cops out there to be enforcing these laws. So you do have a lot of organized crime influence with prostitution. Like I say, it's owned and controlled. It doesn't have to be Luckily, Luciano and the Mafia. It can be some little, 16, 17-year-old gangbanger working on the street. Could be some, pimp, what have you, in his group. But they usually have some type of presence, even though some girls nowadays are independent. Organized crime certainly tries to get its grip on this type of activity because there's so much money involved. When you're talking about your high-end escorting and dating agencies, Heidi Fleiss was what you would call a madam working out of the LA area back in the late 90s. And she had quite a clientele list. Charlie Sheen, number one. But she was running a number of high-class prostitutes and had her own escort agency, was making a lot of money. Now, she ended up getting busted, but she didn't compromise her people that she had as clientele. But nevertheless, she was one of the first people to get arrested for running an escort agency, which was high end. You had a Zumba instructor just a couple years ago, a gal by the name of Alexis Wright. Now, these are all links to these different people here. And she was a Zumba instructor and was working in concert with another man, and they were running a prostitution ring out of her Zumba studio. So she got arrested for that, pled guilty, and so did he. But it was in Kennebunkport, Maine, where George H. Bush lives, past president. And, there's a lot of high-profile people. This is not a lower socioeconomic town or bad area. It's very prolific. It's very very rich with doctors, lawyers, and everything else. And she had also a very compromising list of customers. So pretty embarrassing. Then this link here, you have a number of high-end escorts that talk about working for the agencies, and it gives you some pros and cons. So I would click on these. Aren't real long in length, but it gives you an idea. So when we start talking about legalized prostitution, now Canada up in Ontario has legalized prostitution, or at least has attempted to. There's a number of links here, arguments in favor. These mostly are, I think, are written links. This, I believe, might be YouTube video. But these are arguments in favor of legalizing. These are arguments against it. So click on these links to get some ideas. It may even offer you some other resources that you can check out to give you ideas for the response to your paper. And we talked about, again, is it a victimless crime? And these are all links. And this is your TED Talk again. That was listed earlier. But these are written links that you can read about the research and education to prostitution. So click on these. It gives you more and additional information. So I believe that concludes our PowerPoint presentation and lecture. So go ahead, look at it, but I strongly advise you to click on these links. That's part of I've done a lot of the research for you. Obviously, there's a lot more out there. There's a lot of videos out there on YouTube that you could look at, but I think if you click on these, it should give you a pretty good idea so you can formulate an opinion and an argument based on your essay that is due. So that concludes this presentation. So I will sign off, and if there's any questions, please get a hold of me. Thank you very much.